I found my wife's second phone in a place where no one keeps anything important, tucked inside a small cosmetic bag, hidden deep in the back corner of our bedroom closet, behind winter coats we never wore in Scottsdale's relentless heat. The discovery was pure accident. I'd been looking for an old shoe box where I kept some tax documents from previous years, digging through the clutter we'd accumulated over a decade of marriage. My hand brushed against something that didn't belong, a small, burgundy makeup bag with a zipper that looked new, untouched by the dust that covered everything else back there. I almost didn't open it. Some part of me, even then, knew that whatever was inside would change everything. But curiosity won. Or maybe it was something darker than curiosity, that gnawing suspicion that had been eating at me for months, finally demanding answers. Inside was a phone. Not Bertha's usual iPhone with the cracked screen protector and our kids' photos as the wallpaper. This was a cheap Android device, the kind you buy prepaid at a gas station when you don't want something traced back to you. The kind of phone that screams secret before you even turn it on. My hands trembled as I pressed the power button. The battery was nearly dead, but it had enough juice to come to life. No lock screen. No password. She'd been careless, or maybe she never imagined I'd find it. The screen opened directly to a messaging app one didn't recognize. And there, filling the entire conversation history, was a name that made my stomach drop, Mathew. I sat down on the closet floor, my back against the wall, and started reading. Every message felt like a knife sliding between my ribs, slow and precise. They went back months, all the way to last July, right after our trip to Corsica. Let me back up. My life in Scottsdale had always been predictable in the best way possible. Steady accounting job at a mid-sized firm downtown, comfortable 3-bedroom house in a neighborhood where people actually waved to each other, 2 kids who actually seemed to like us most days. I thought I had it figured out. The kind of life where you wake up knowing exactly what the day will bring, and you're grateful for it. My name is Roy, and for 10 years, I'd been married to Bertha. We met at a mutual friend's birthday party when we were both in our mid-20s. She was training to be a nurse. I was fresh out of college with my accounting degree, trying to figure out what adults were supposed to do with their lives. She had this way of laughing that made everyone around her smile. I fell hard and fast. We dated for 2 years before I proposed on a hiking trip to Sedona. Nothing fancy, just the 2 of us and the red rocks and a ring I'd saved 6 months to afford. She cried when she said yes. They were happy tears. I was sure of it then. The first few years of marriage were good. Really good. We bought our house when Bertha got pregnant with our first child, a daughter we named Emma. 2 years later came Jack, our son, who inherited his mother's laugh and my tendency to overthink everything. Bertha worked as a nurse at Scottsdale Regional Hospital, rotating through different shifts, days, nights, weekends. The schedule was brutal, but she loved the work. Loved helping people. At least, that's what she always told me. I worked 9 to 6, Monday through Friday, processing numbers and balancing books for clients who barely knew my name. It wasn't glamorous, but it was stable. It paid the bills. It gave us the life we wanted, or the life I thought we wanted. We had routines. Friday movie nights with the kids. Sunday morning pancakes that I always burned slightly, but everyone pretended were perfect. Annual camping trips to the Grand Canyon, where we'd argue about how to set up the tent and laugh about it later. We were normal, comfortable, safe, or so I believed. Our 10th anniversary fell on a particularly hot July. We'd been planning something special for over a year, a real vacation, just the 2 of us. My parents agreed to watch Emma and Jack for 2 weeks, and we booked a trip to Corsica. The French island had always been on Bertha's bucket list. She'd seen pictures in a travel magazine years ago and became obsessed with the idea of visiting someday. I'll admit, I didn't care much about the destination. I just wanted time with my wife, away from work stress and parenting responsibilities and the monotony that had started creeping into our marriage. I wanted to remember why we'd fallen in love in the first place. The flight was long, Phoenix to Paris, Paris to Ajaccio, but Bertha was giddy the entire time. She kept pulling up photos on her phone, showing me beaches we'd visit, restaurants we had to try, hiking trails with views that looked photoshopped. Her excitement was contagious. I found myself getting genuinely excited too. Corsica was stunning, more beautiful than the pictures somehow. We stayed in a small hotel in Calvi, a coastal town with a historic citadel and narrow streets that smelled like sea salt and fresh bread. Our room had a balcony overlooking the Mediterranean. We'd wake up to the sound of waves and fall asleep to the same rhythm. The first few days were perfect. We explored the town, ate too much, drank local wine, and actually talked, really talked, for the first time in months. About the kids, about our dreams, about whether we were happy. The answer, I thought then, was yes. We were happy. We just needed to remember to prioritize each other more. On our 4th day, we booked a full-day tour of the island's highlights. That's when we met Mathew. He was our tour guide, assigned by the company we'd booked through. Mid-30s, French accent, the kind of easy charm that probably came from talking to tourists all day, every day. He picked us up in a van at 8 in the morning, along with 3 other couples, and spent the next 10 hours showing us the island. Mathew was good at his job. Really good. He knew exactly when to share historical facts, when to crack jokes, when to give us space to take photos. He pointed out hidden beaches, told us local legends about bandits and vendettas, recommended restaurants that only locals know about. Everyone in the van loved him. Bertha especially seemed taken with him. She laughed at all his jokes, asked questions about his life on the island, wanted to know how he'd ended up as a tour guide. He explained that he'd grown up in Corsica, studied history in Paris, but came back because he loved the island too much to leave permanently. Tourism was seasonal work, but it paid enough and let him live the life he wanted. I didn't think anything of it. She was being friendly. That's who Bertha was, warm, interested in people, easy to talk to. It's part of what made her a good nurse. At one point during the tour, we stopped at a viewpoint overlooking the Calanques de Piena, these incredible red rock formations jutting out into impossibly blue water. Mathew pulled me aside and said, "You're a lucky man. Your wife is lovely." I thanked him and agreed. I was lucky. I knew that. What I didn't know was that while I was taking photos of the landscape, Mathew was taking a selfie with Bertha. Just a friendly tourist photo, or so it seemed. What I definitely didn't know was that they were exchanging phone numbers at that exact moment, under the pretense of him sending her recommendations for our remaining time on the island. The tour ended around 7 that evening. I tipped Mathew generously. He'd made our day memorable. We all thanked him, said our goodbyes, and went our separate ways. I forgot about him almost immediately. Bertha didn't. 3 days before we were scheduled to fly home, I woke up with a splitting headache. The kind that makes light feel like knives and every sound unbearable. Probably dehydration combined with too much sun and wine. I took some painkillers and tried to push through, but by afternoon, I was useless. "Go back to the hotel and rest," Bertha insisted. We'd planned to spend the day exploring a different beach town, but I was clearly in no condition. "I'll go check it out, take some photos, and tell you if it's worth going back together tomorrow when you feel better." It made sense. No point in both of us wasting the day. I trusted her completely. Why wouldn't I? I spent the afternoon in our dark hotel room, drifting in and out of sleep, occasionally checking my phone for messages from Bertha. She sent a few photos, beautiful coastal views, a charming cafe, herself smiling in the sunshine. Normal vacation photos. She texted that she was having a nice time, but missed me. That she'd be back for dinner. She returned around 7, sun-kissed and smiling, carrying a bag of pastries from a local bakery. Asked how I was feeling, listened sympathetically as I complained about the headache, suggested we order room service and watch a movie in bed. We did exactly that. It was a nice, quiet evening. I never suspected that anything else had happened that day. Never questioned the timeline or asked for details about where exactly she'd gone. Never wondered why she seemed particularly cheerful, almost giddy, in a way that seemed disproportionate to a solo afternoon of sightseeing. The truth was hidden in that phone I'd find months later, buried in messages that made my blood run cold. Looking back, I could see when things shifted. It was gradual enough that I'd convinced myself I was imagining it. Bertha started taking extra shifts at the hospital, volunteering for weekends and overnight rotations she'd previously avoided. She said they needed the money, that she was trying to build up our savings. I believed her. The extra income was nice, and I was happy to handle more of the parenting duties if it meant we'd be more financially comfortable. She became protective of her phone in a way she'd never been before. It was always face down on tables, always locked, always within arm's reach. If I entered a room while she was texting, she'd quickly switch apps or lock the screen. When I asked who she was talking to, she'd say it was work stuff or one of her nursing friends. I had no reason to doubt her. She started going to the gym more regularly, bought new workout clothes, started caring about her appearance in a way she hadn't in years. I thought it was great, good for her health, good for her confidence. I told her she looked beautiful, that I loved seeing her happy. I didn't realize she was doing it for someone else. The emotional distance was harder to pinpoint. We still functioned as a family unit, dinner together, helping kids with homework, weekend activities. But the intimacy between us had faded. She'd turn away when I tried to kiss her, claim she was too tired when I initiated anything physical. Our conversations became superficial, focused on logistics and schedules rather than actual connection. I attributed it to the normal ebbs and flows of a long marriage. We had 2 young kids, demanding jobs, busy lives. I figured we'd reconnect when things calmed down. I didn't realize she was already connecting with someone else, thousands of miles away, through a secret phone hidden in our closet. Marcus was the first to say something. We'd been friends since college, played basketball together every Thursday night, knew each other well enough to be honest when it mattered. It was a Friday evening in October, about 3 months after we'd returned from Corsica. Marcus and his wife Sarah had invited us over for a barbecue. Just our 2 families, some burgers, letting the kids run around the backyard while we adults relaxed. I was helping Marcus man the grill when he cleared his throat in that way people do when they're about to say something uncomfortable. "Hey, so I don't really know how to bring this up," he started, focused intently on flipping a burger. "But Sarah's been worried about Bertha." I looked at him confused. "Worried? Why?" "She's just different. Since you guys got back from your trip. Distant, maybe? Sarah's tried to talk to her a few times, invite her to lunch, just catch up, but Bertha's always busy or distracted. And tonight," he gestured toward the patio where our wives were sitting. "She's barely said 2 words, and she's been on her phone half the time." I glanced over. He was right. Bertha was scrolling through her phone, only half listening to Sarah's conversation, a small smile on her face that didn't match the social situation she was in. "I don't know, man," Marcus continued. "Maybe it's nothing. Maybe work is stressing her out. But you guys doing okay? Like really okay?" I assured him everything was fine. Laughed it off, blamed it on her crazy work schedule, said we were both probably just tired. But his words planted a seed that started growing in the dark corners of my mind. Over the next few weeks, other people noticed too. Bertha's sister mentioned she seemed off when they talked on the phone. Emma's teacher commented at a parent conference that Bertha had seemed distracted when picking up our daughter, forgetting to sign forms or asking the same questions twice. Even my mother, who typically minded her own business, asked gently if everything was all right at home. Everyone could see something was wrong except me. Or maybe I could see it too, but I was too scared to confront what it might mean. By November, I couldn't ignore it anymore. The signs were too obvious, too consistent. Something was fundamentally wrong in my marriage, and I needed to know what. I spent a week wrestling with what to do. I could confront Bertha directly, ask her outright if she was having an affair. But what if I was wrong? What if I was just being paranoid, seeing patterns that didn't exist? I'd destroy her trust in me, damage our marriage based on nothing but suspicion and anxiety. I could do nothing, wait for more concrete evidence, hope the situation would resolve itself somehow. But that felt like cowardice, like burying my head in the sand while my marriage crumbled around me. Or I could hire a private investigator. The idea felt sordid, like something from a movie rather than real life. But the more I thought about it, the more sense it made. I needed facts, not assumptions. I needed to know the truth, whatever it was, so I could make informed decisions about my future. I found Tom through an online search. Private Investigator Scottsdale led me to his website. He'd been in business for 15 years, had good reviews, specialized in domestic cases. I called him during my lunch break, sitting in my car in the parking garage, so no one from work would overhear. Tom's voice was professional, not judgmental. He'd clearly had this conversation hundreds of times. He explained his rates, his methods, what kind of evidence he could and couldn't legally obtain. He assured me that discretion was paramount, that Bertha would never know she was being watched unless I wanted her to know. "Most of my clients already know the answer before they hire me," Tom said. "They just need proof. Is that your situation?" I thought about it. "I don't know what I know anymore," I admitted. "I just need the truth." "Then let's find it," he said. Tom started surveillance the following week. I gave him Bertha's work schedule, her regular routines, the license plate number of her car. I felt guilty doing it, like I was betraying her even as I tried to catch her betraying me. But I needed answers more than I needed to feel good about myself. The first few days of surveillance turned up nothing unusual. Bertha went to work, came home, ran errands, picked up kids. Normal life. I started wondering if I'd wasted money on paranoia. Then Tom called me on a Wednesday afternoon. "I need you to check something for me." Does your wife have a second phone? My stomach dropped. What? No. I don't think so. Why? Because she's spending a lot of time in her car, parked in random locations, clearly talking to or texting someone. But the movements don't match your description of her normal phone habits. The way she's holding it, the way she's hiding the screen from the window, even though no one's around to see, it reads like a burner phone to me. A burner phone. The term sounded ridiculous applied to my wife, my children's mother, a medical professional who saved lives for a living. But Tom had been doing this for 15 years. He knew what he was seeing. I'd recommend searching your house, Tom continued. People usually keep them somewhere they think is secure but accessible. Bedroom is most common. Check drawers, closets, storage bins, anywhere she has space that you don't typically access. And if I find it, don't confront her yet. Document what's on it, photos, screenshots, whatever you need. That's evidence for divorce proceedings, if it comes to that. The court system looks very unfavorably on infidelity in Arizona. It can impact asset division, alimony, even custody in some cases. Divorce. The word hung in the air like smoke. Tom was already 10 steps ahead, treating this like the ending was inevitable. Maybe it was. That evening, after Bertha left for a night shift and the kids were asleep, I started searching. It felt violating, going through her things with suspicion rather than trust. But I was too far in to stop now. I found the phone in less than 20 minutes. The small cosmetic bag in the back of our closet, hidden behind winter coats and forgotten storage boxes. The burgundy makeup bag that seemed too new, too deliberately placed. And inside, the cheap Android phone that confirmed every fear I'd been trying to suppress. I sat on that closet floor for over 2 hours, reading through months of messages. The phone was a chronicle of my wife's double life, laid out in explicit detail. The messages with Mathew stretched back to July, starting the day after our island tour. I watched their relationship evolve from friendly tourist banter to emotional intimacy to outright affair. I read about the afternoon they spent together, while I nursed a headache in our hotel room. Read her describe it to him later. I've never felt so alive. Like I was remembering who I used to be before I became someone's wife, someone's mother. The photos were worse. Pictures of them together that day, looking at each other like teenagers in love. And then the intimate ones, the ones that left no doubt about what had happened. I had to close the phone after those, take a moment to breathe, fight back the nausea. There were voice messages too. I couldn't bring myself to listen to most of them, but I forced myself through a few. Mathew's accented voice saying sweet things, romantic things, promising they'd find a way to be together. Bertha's voice, my wife's voice, responding with equal affection, saying she'd never felt this way before, that what they had was worth fighting for. The most damning evidence was the planning. Bertha had been meticulous about it. She'd researched divorce lawyers in Scottsdale, looked up custody law in Arizona, read forums about international relocation with children. She'd even contacted a nursing licensing board in France to ask about credential transfers. She was going to leave. Not someday, not maybe. She had an actual plan. She was just waiting for the right moment, probably trying to figure out the logistics of taking our kids to another country, another continent, to be with a man they'd never met. In one message, Mathew had asked, "What about Roy? Have you told him anything?" Bertha's response, "No, not yet. I need to be strategic. He's the father of my children, and he's not a bad man. He just isn't you. He isn't what I need anymore." That message hurt more than almost anything else. The casual dismissal of our decade together. The acknowledgement that I wasn't a bad man, like that was somehow worse than if I'd been terrible and she'd had a clear reason to leave. The clinical way she discussed being strategic about destroying our family. I wasn't even a person to her anymore. Just an obstacle to overcome, a problem to solve on her way to her new life. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. I lay in bed next to our kids' rooms, listening to them breathe peacefully through the baby monitor I should have removed years ago, and tried to figure out what to do next. By morning, I'd made my decision. I wasn't going to yell or rage or break things. I was going to be methodical, strategic, to borrow Bertha's word. If she could plan my betrayal with cold calculation, I could plan my response the same way. First, I called Tom and told him what I'd found. He came to the house that afternoon while Bertha was at work and the kids were at school. He documented everything on the phone, every message, every photo, every piece of evidence that would matter in divorce court. He backed it all up to a secure drive and provided me with a detailed written report of his surveillance findings. "This is pretty clear-cut," Tom said as he worked. No ambiguity here. Any reasonable person can see what happened. Next, I called a divorce attorney. Jennifer Chen came highly recommended, tough, smart, experienced in high-asset divorces involving infidelity. Her office was downtown, modern and professional in a way that made the whole situation feel surreally businesslike. Jennifer reviewed Tom's report and the phone evidence. She didn't react emotionally, didn't gasp or express sympathy. She just analyzed it like the legal problem it was. Arizona is a no-fault divorce state, but infidelity still matters for asset division, she explained. The court can consider it when determining what's equitable. Given this level of deception and her plans to relocate with your children, we have a strong case for you to retain primary custody and majority of marital assets. How long will this take? If she contests, could be months. If she agrees to settle once she sees the evidence, could be much faster. The key is filing first and establishing the narrative. You're the wrong party here. That matters. I filed for divorce that same day. Jennifer handled all the paperwork while I sat in her conference room, signing my name over and over, each signature feeling like I was erasing a piece of my old life. The final step was practical but necessary. I arranged for Emma and Jack to stay with my sister for a few days. I told them it was a fun extended sleepover, that Daddy had some work stuff to handle. They were excited, not suspicious. Thank God for their innocence. I chose a Tuesday for the confrontation. Bertha wasn't working. The kids were safely at my sister's. The house was quiet in that specific way that only happens when you're about to blow up your entire life. I laid everything out on our kitchen table. Tom's surveillance report, bound and professional. Printed screenshots of the most damning messages, organized chronologically. Photos that I forced myself to print despite how much I didn't want to see them again. Bank statements showing her secret account. Research documents about moving to France. The divorce filing, already submitted to the court. And in the center of it all, the burgundy cosmetic bag with the phone inside, positioned like evidence at a trial. I texted Bertha, "Can you come home? Need to talk about something important." She responded within minutes. "Everything okay? You're scaring me. Just come home. Please." She arrived at 6:30, pulling into the driveway with a concerned expression visible through the windshield. I watched her walk up to the door, key in hand, probably running through possibilities in her mind. Maybe she thought something happened with the kids. Maybe she thought I'd lost my job. Maybe some part of her knew, but pushed the thought away because it couldn't possibly be time yet. She called out when she entered, "Roy, what's wrong? Where are the kids?" I was standing in the kitchen doorway. "The kids are fine. They're at my sister's. Come in here, please." She walked into the kitchen and stopped dead when she saw the table. I watched the color drain from her face, watched her eyes dart across the evidence laid out like an accusation, watched her realize that her carefully constructed double life had just collapsed. "Roy." Her voice was barely a whisper. "What is this?" I didn't yell, didn't cry. I kept my voice steady and calm, like I was discussing tax returns instead of infidelity. "I think it's pretty obvious what this is. But if you need me to spell it out, I know about Mathew. I know what happened in Corsica. I know about the phone, the messages, the plans to leave. I know everything." She tried to speak. Her mouth opened and closed several times, no words coming out. Then finally, "I can explain." "No." I held up my hand. "I don't want explanations. I don't want excuses. I want a divorce." The next few weeks were a blur of lawyers and paperwork and difficult conversations. Bertha tried at first to minimize what had happened. Called it a mistake, an emotional affair that didn't really mean anything, a moment of weakness that got out of hand. She cried, apologized, begged for another chance. But I'd read the messages. I'd seen the photos. I knew about that afternoon in Corsica when she'd slept with him while I was alone with a headache, trusting her completely. I knew about the months of planning to leave, the secret bank account, the research into taking my children to another country. This wasn't a mistake. It was a deliberate choice, made over and over again for nearly half a year. When she realized I was serious about the divorce, her tone changed. She got defensive, angry, claimed I'd been emotionally unavailable for years, that I'd driven her to seek connection elsewhere. Said I was home but never really present, that I cared more about spreadsheets than our marriage. Some of it might have been true. I wasn't a perfect husband. But nothing justified what she'd done. Her lawyer reviewed Tom's evidence and advised her to settle. The messages were too explicit, the planning too detailed, the betrayal too clear. Fighting would only drag things out and make everything more expensive and painful. Arizona's laws worked in my favor. The evidence of infidelity, combined with her plans to relocate with the children without my knowledge or consent, painted a clear picture for the family court judge. I was awarded primary custody of Emma and Jack, with Bertha getting them every other weekend and alternating holidays. The house remained in my name. The savings accounts, the retirement funds, most of the marital assets, they all stayed with me. Bertha got enough to rent a small apartment on the other side of Scottsdale and maintain a modest lifestyle. Fair, according to the judge, given the circumstances. She moved out in December, just before Christmas. The kids cried when she left, confused about why Mommy was taking her clothes and moving to a different house. I tried to explain in age-appropriate terms. Mommy and Daddy still loved them very much, but sometimes grown-ups needed to live separately. It wasn't their fault. They'd still see her regularly. Emma, at 8 years old, asked the question I'd been dreading. Is it because of that man in the pictures? I'd been so careful to keep the evidence away from the kids, but Emma had apparently seen me looking at something on my laptop before I could close the screen. She'd seen enough to ask questions I didn't want to answer. It's complicated, sweetie, I said, pulling her close. Adult relationships are complicated sometimes, but what you need to know is that both your parents love you more than anything, and that will never change. She nodded against my chest, but I could tell she didn't really believe things would be okay. Smart kid. The divorce was finalized in March, for months after I'd filed. Bertha signed all the papers without fighting, probably exhausted by the process and eager to move on with her life. The judge made it official with a signature and a stamp, and just like that, 10 years of marriage ceased to exist in any legal sense. I thought I'd feel something profound in that moment, relief, sadness, anger, something. Instead, I just felt tired. The real pain came in the smaller moments. Realizing I'd never have to buy her favorite coffee creamer anymore. Removing her contact from my phone's favorites list. Taking down photos that showed us happy together, back when I'd believed our happiness was real. Explaining to friends and extended family that we were getting divorced. Watching them process the information with various degrees of surprise and sympathy. Some people asked what happened. I kept it vague. We grew apart. It didn't work out. I didn't want to air all the dirty details, didn't want to make Bertha into a villain in everyone's eyes even though she'd certainly played the villain in my life. She was still the mother of my children. They'd have to maintain a relationship with her for decades to come. Destroying her reputation wouldn't help anyone. But the people closest to me, Marcus, my sister, my parents, they knew the truth. I'd needed to tell someone, needed people who understood why I'd made the decisions I made, why reconciliation wasn't an option, no matter how much Bertha claimed she wanted to try again. Because the thing about betrayal isn't just what someone did, it's who they revealed themselves to be when they thought no one was watching. Bertha had chosen deception over honesty every single day for months. Had slept with another man while I was vulnerable and trusting. Had planned to take my children to another country, to rip apart their lives for her fantasy. I chose differently. I chose truth, even when it hurt. I chose my kids. I chose a life where I didn't have to wonder if the person next to me was planning their escape. And I know I made the right choice. I'm more than okay. I'm free. Thank you for watching the video to the end. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. A playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to is now displayed on the screen. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.